There are things that I call the expected surprise because it actually is expected. And people who can adapt to these changes and challenges age differently than those who feel so surprised and then lament, I never thought that my husband would pass away before I did. We should be thinking like that.
Right. Do you want to be better with money but dread the math? I get it. That's why this show is not focused on math, the markets, meme stocks, or even economic predictions. It is focused on how money fits into your daily life, from having healthy money conversations to caring for an aging parent. I'm Karen Coyne, certified financial planner professional and your host of Money Without Math. Join us for conversations that are practical, sometimes philosophical, and always fresh. Learn more about me at raymondjames.com/clarity and be sure to subscribe. We've all heard plenty of optimization advice from longevity experts, from following the Mediterranean diet to improving sleep. And those may be effective at increasing longevity, the length of our lives. But what about the quality of our lives? Today, we'll discuss how to put more joy and fulfillment in those years with a leading expert in this area. Our guest today is Dr. Kerry Burnight. She's known as America's Gerontologist, and she's also the author of the New York Times bestseller, Joyspan, The Art and Science of Thriving in Life's Second Half. Welcome, Dr. Kerry.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. This is such a great topic, especially for my Gen X brethren, as we're getting older ourselves and also taking care of aging parents. And so this is advice that we can use for ourselves and for our parents, right?
That's right. That's one thing that we all have in common is that we are all aging. And so when people ask me, when should I start, kind of attending to this? I think the earlier, the better. And we have had interest with people in their 20s and 30s, not only optimizing their physical health, but these other elements as well. And I think that's encouraging.
It is. Because we have so much information. But sometimes, again, that information gets tilted very heavily in one direction. And so this is a great counterpoint, I feel like, to the information overload that we've had for so many years about increasing the longevity, while maybe tending less to these other aspects.
Yes.
And so one point I wanted to share to kind of dig into this conversation, I had seen research previously that said, maybe our genes were responsible for about a third of our health, and then the rest of it was on us. But I saw you pointed out that it's actually only 20%.
Yes, there are studies that the most credible studies are between 13 and 25%. And that's good news because that our genes are not our destiny, that the biggest is these everyday behaviors. And a lot of times with my patients, they'll say, I expect to live a long time because my mom did, or conversely, we don't have the longevity gene because my mom passed away early. And in both of those cases, that really is not what we should be banking on because so much is up to us, basically. And we make 35,000 choices a day. So it is all these choices that really add up to what the quantity and quality of our longevity.
Okay. So that's a lot of choices, though.
Yes. And they're little micro choices, right? And also, our thoughts are incredibly powerful. So research out of Yale University shows that when holding all other variables constant, people who think positively about their own aging and expect aging to be a time of continued growth and vitality live on average 7.5 years longer.
Wow.
And their health factors are also impacted. So inflammation, antiviral load. So when we succumb to the prevailing narrative of aging as all decline, we are truly then making that narrative accurate.
Oh, gosh.
I would encourage your listeners to really take a minute to think about, how do you think about growing older? How do you picture yourself at 90? Because what you picture, you are working toward, whether you know it or not.
Oh my goodness. And so what were some of those micro decisions or micro choices that you had in mind when you mentioned that a bit ago?
Yes. So there are so many.
35,000.
Yes. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to divide them in 4 areas, because what I found in the literature, there were thousands of variables that impacts the quality of our longevity, but happily they group into 4 areas. And so those 4 areas are continued growth. So a micro factor, a micro decision might be, when presented with something, if you think, I don't think I can do that. That seems outside. I think I missed the boat on that. Versus the decision of like, I don't know how to do that. I think I'm going to try. And that little decision really impacts. So my patients who are loving their lives at 100, they are doing hard things. They believe that aging, like all of life, is a time for continued growth. And so that's one in the growth department. The second area is connection. A huge literature shows that how we are connected with other humans impacts how we'll age. So, for example, if you think, gosh, I would like a little more social interaction than I currently have, are you the one picking up the phone, texting somebody, I'm thinking about you, reaching out to a neighbor and saying, I know you're going to chemo. May I drive you there? Or if you don't drive anymore, would you like somebody to accompany you to keep you? So all of these little decisions within the connection domain that I'm going to continue to, diversify my social portfolio. So, financially, we talk about diversifying our financial portfolio, but socially, we have got to do the same thing. My mom is 96 and almost all her friends have passed away. But happily, she and I, about 20 years ago, understood this concept, and she proactively went after people 20 years younger than she is to form these friendships, so that now she gets together with people who are only 70 and 80, whereas she's 96. And both she is enriched, but they are enriched to have a friend, an example, and a role model.
And that's not even counting all of her new social friends on Instagram.
Yes, I post my mom on social media on Instagram, and it's called _Gerontologist. And I found that the teaching points from the studies were so easily exemplified in the practice of my mom, who's been doing these things. So it's been pretty fun.
Oh my gosh.
So far we talked about growth.
Growth. Yep.
We talked about connection.
Connect. Yep.
So then we get to the next one, which is adapt. So people who thrive in longevity, people who love their 100-year lives, are people who don't have their head in the sand thinking nothing challenging is going to happen. There are no long lives that are free of challenge. When we live long enough, we often outlive our partners. It's the norm. One of you is going to pass away first. Right. And it's okay to think like that, because it's not morbid, it's factual. Similarly, it is the norm that we're going to be diagnosed with things we didn't expect, or maybe like I did, my retina detached and I lost my vision. I mean, there are things that I call the expected surprise, because it actually is expected. And people who can adapt to these changes and challenges age differently than those who feel so surprised and then lament, I can't believe this happened to me. I never thought. And I have a beautiful patient that I'm working with, and she just said, I never thought that my husband would pass away before I did. And I love her and I understand and I hug her. And I also think we should be thinking like that.
Right.
So we've got grow.
Yep.
We've got connect. We've got adapt. And that there's a big coping literature within adapting internal and external coping mechanisms that I talk about in the book.
Okay.
And then the final one, and my favorite, in fact, is give. People who enjoy the quality of their long lives are people who have sought and found ways to continue to give of themselves. We've got to get rid of this inaccurate aging notion that we have less to give, because as we get older, we actually have more to give, and we have what society needs. Society is in desperate search of humility and listening and not caring so much what people think, and appreciation of connection and beauty and art. And that is what gets better as we get older. So if we can capitalize on what gets better as we get older and recognize how much we have to give, I think we have the opportunity, given that every day 10,000 more of us turn 75. So it's an army, and it has been conceptualized as a tsunami, which is very negative, right? Like, oh, there's going to be so many of us old people. Yes, there are going to be caregiving and health challenges that we need to lean into and address. But also, if we lean into this opportunity, I mean, what a world we can have with older people who are carrying these gifts. So,
yes. And it's so fascinating because your research, I'm going to pull up a post. The day that we connected, actually, I had posted on social media and shared an observation among some of my older clients, and mutual contact had commented about your book, which is how we got connected. But I have observed anecdotally the same things that you have found in your research. So just to share my post that day, I said, quote, "I love my life." And that I've been hearing this more from women in their 70s. Yes, in their 70s, living their best inner lives, living their best lives, but also their best rich inner lives. And that the common denominators that I've been observing is that there's an internal richness, which is a sense of deep gratitude, peace, and fulfillment. It's supported by strong relationships, physical activity, and a generally positive outlook and continuous curiosity and learning.
Yeah, is exactly right. And it is so true. The case sometimes, the research is great, but also a lot of times when research is right, we go, I already knew that. And it's not new. You can go back to the work of way, way back in the Greek and Roman times. And a lot of these messages are the oldest messages that there is. And all these traditions and spiritual traditions are pointing in this same direction. And
right.
But we've lost our way.
Well, we've lost our way, I think, in part because how do you put gratitude in a pill and sell it? How do you put contentment in a pill and sell it?
Yes, that's so absolutely true. So fear sells. So this multi-billion-dollar industry that makes us feel bad about ourselves, like if you get wrinkles on your neck, or heaven forbid that your stomach isn't a washboard, that's how they're making money. And ironically, when we step into going, I might as well enjoy this time that I'm here instead of suffering it. Because like when I teach undergraduate students, I always start with a pie chart behind me, and I say, let's talk about mortality. And it's a pie chart that's just a red circle that's all filled in. So the mortality rate's 100%. And we can use that time and see it as the gift that it is, regardless of the hard times. Or we can somehow think, I'm not going to age. Not true. I'm not going to die. Not true. And it really makes me feel great when I see people go, aha, joy it's a little different from happiness. So happiness is often circumstantial. Joy, because it's an inside out kind of job, joy is great for longevity because it's kind of like contentment, peace, life satisfaction. It is psychological well-being. And so a lot of like the American Psychological Association, for example, that's how they define joy. And so that's where we can think, I am not always happy, and no one is always happy. And toxic positivity is for the birds. No, thank you. But this internal sense of, regardless of all the swirl that's going on around and all of the challenges with our kids, with our finances, with our grandkids, still there can be joy by working on these areas that you noted already in your post, and that is supported in the literature.
Yes, so fascinating. So, okay, so it sounds like that's not dependent on external factors, or joy is not dependent on those external things. It's an
and
internal.
It's what we need in those hard times. So I had the privilege of walking with thousands of people in their aging journeys. And so I'll have two people. They have the same socioeconomic status. They're both widows. They both live in the same area. They both have the same medical conditions. And yet one's life is characterized by suffering and tragedy. And the other, with the same external conditions, has this, like you said, like this gratitude, this contentment, this proactive, how can I continue to serve? Like, how can I go next door to a neighbor who I know is a single mother and say, hey, when you're cooking dinner, if you should ever need another set of hands, I would love to hold one of your kids while you cooked. Yeah. And that, it's a snowball. All these little decisions and steps that we take when we step into this older version of ourselves. So my mom, amazingly, is the best version of herself. And so she's the first to say, I wasn't always content. I was really caught up in all this stuff. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten better. And what a legacy that is for us, because it makes us excited. I can't wait to be 96. Even though I'm going to most likely have pain and outlive my husband and all this kind of stuff, I still have all these examples of what it can be like, but it's up to me to make it so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you on that. I play tennis, and I have friends who play who are in their 70s, and I can play 40 plus, but I can't play 55 plus for a couple more years. But I'm really close. I'm like 2 years away from being able to play 55 plus. And so it's this running joke with a girlfriend of mine, like, I can't wait to be 55.
Yes.
So I can play with my 55 crew.
And it's such a change. Like that is a change, and that is the new longevity. So you are part of this mindset that we collectively all recognize, like, oh, we are messed up about aging, but we're doing something about it. And it's not going to come from younger people going, oh, it's going to come from people, their own aging and stepping into it. So when each of us has this internalized ageism left over from the messaging. So when you think like, oh no, I'm having a senior moment, you need to counter that out loud, out loud, and say like, no, I don't know where my car is, but I also, in my 20s, sometimes this happened. Or yeah, you know what? When I feel a thought goes into my head of like, oh no, I've got wrinkles around my eyes. Yeah, of course I do. I'm 56 and I've been smiling a lot, and I'm going to get a lot more. But it does take a conscious shift than what we've been taught. Old is bad, and that somehow old is a bad word. Somebody recently said to Helen Mirren, who is of the new longevity, they said, oh, you're not old. And she stopped in her beautiful way and said, yes, I am. And I'm delighted about it. And, you're not complimenting me by saying I'm not old. I'm in my 80s.
Right.
Old is radiant and beautiful. And here she is on the, catwalk and doing all of the things because she's doing it differently than the old way, where we tried to stay young.
Right.
The question used to be how not to age. And the question now is how to age.
Right. Well, and just the expression anti-aging, like take this anti-aging product, anti.
Yeah. And that we're pro-aging. Like, I am pro-aging and more and more, and companies are getting that too. I do see people stepping back on this thing of saying, you can defy aging.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
watching companies lean into it. It's exciting. And it's the
Yes.
same way it used to be that people would say like, oh, women can't. And then they'd name all these things. And then women had to be the pioneers to say, watch me.
You know, I love to say aging disgracefully and as
Yes.
opposed to aging gracefully. And of course, I am not referring to abandoning all forms of decorum. I'm just saying, like, let's not accept passively these scripts. Because what you're describing, I'm hearing a lot of actions, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of choice. There's a lot of conscious decisions and a lot of actions. We're not just passively getting older and accepting these old scripts. If we don't want to do that, we have to be active in that.
Exactly right. And so the analogy that I use is that with the physical body, the research shows us there are also 4 areas. So we need to make sure we're working on our cardio, our strength, our flexibility, and our balance. You do those 4 things, and then it's not just like, oh, you're just lucky. No, you every day did a little bit to work on those. And so that is for physical strength.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's go to internal strength. And internal strength, grow, connect, adapt, give. You're conscious of those. You have a vocabulary. You're working on them all the time. And once you have that vocabulary, you notice, you think, look at me. I really, with Connect, I made a book club because I wish I was in a book club, but I'm not. And so I created it. Look at that. Connect. Click.
Yeah. You know,
there'll be a day where you can't maybe play tennis. Like,
right.
That could easily happen. And when you do, and you move it to something different, and then you'll think, look at me, adapt.
Okay. We can't talk about that though, because I really, I have thought about that. I don't want to think about that. It'll be pickleball probably, but
do think about it, because when we think about it in advance, it really helps our way. So you think, I may be able to play tennis till I'm 110. And if that's the case, how great.
Right.
But it doesn't do any harm for you to also think, if there comes a time, and statistically, that is actually the more likely, that my knees or back or whatever is the thing, I'm going to be able to find something that brings me joy because I've created it. Because if it is just tied to the ability to keep doing tennis, that's going to be a problem.
Sure. What's the biggest change that you've had to make personally, or change to your approach?
Yes. Well, so both of my eyes, I had a full retinal detachment on one, so I lost all the vision in one, and a partial in the other. So I've had really a lot of eye surgeries and then a time of complete blindness. And in the beginning, I was not doing this. I felt very sorry that I couldn't drive and I couldn't look at my phone and I couldn't look at my computer. And I thought, I'm a gerontologist and I'm only in my 50s. What? And it was actually, I have to say, good, because it said none of us are immune to changes and challenges. And it still is up to you. So I did what we all do. I sat on the couch and I felt bad for myself and listened to TV and ate out of, bags of chips until I gained weight. And then happily one day I said, Kerry, this path is not good. Not good for your kids to watch you how you're doing this. Not good for your husband. Certainly not good for you. You got to figure out, you got to find a new way. And like slowly I did. I thought, what if I use what I have, which is my hearing and my physical. And so we found some ways where I could use my voice to call Uber to get somewhere. And I invited neighbors like, hey, I'm going to Trader Joe's. Would you come along with me? Because I'm not sighted right now, and you could help me pick out the items and put in my basket. And people were delighted to help. It's just that they didn't know because I was on my couch hiding. Yeah. So it's not
many people have a hard time asking for help. I was just meeting with clients last week that are, one has a really just dire health diagnosis, and they were saying people are asking left and right, like, let us know how we can help. But they're working on making a list of here's different things that we can ask for. So when people ask us, we can respond easily like, hey, we could use this or we could use help with that. But
when you ask for help, you are absolutely giving the person a gift.
Yes.
Because every human wants to be the giver and it feels good to be the giver. And there's some research in a book called The Dilemmas of Dependency that talks about how it's hard for us to ask for help and it's uncomfortable and it feels less than. And the reality is when you do it, then the other person thinks, oh, wow, now I have a person that I'm close with that I can ask for help also. So maybe your listeners today could think, there's a challenge. I'm going to ask for help on one thing. And it could be something with the computer, something with a pet, something with think of how may I ask for help?
Yeah.
And there's an illusion about independence. Like people will say, I'll be happy as long as I'm independent. Actually, humans have always been interdependent. So we never were entirely independent. And so if you kind of lean into the recognition of interdependence,
yes,
it's actually good for both parties.
I love that. I love the challenge to think about a way that you can ask for help and that might help you connect also. And
it helps you connect. It helps the other person give. They will then ask you for something.
Yes.
So that friend that I told you got so that because she just didn't know that I couldn't get to the supermarket. But once I asked her, then she started taking me and then she asked me for help and I got my sight back. And we have this great friendship all because one day I got brave and said, could you help me?
Yes. I love that. I hope that listeners do take you up on that challenge because
and
I hear this
caregiving too. Like sometimes, like my mom did not want to have any help. She wants to live at home, but she didn't want to have anybody come in and help her at home, and she didn't want the adult children to come and help. So we had some good conversations, and ultimately she said, "Well, I guess if it was just 2 days a week, and I guess if I picked the person, and I guess if I paid cash." So that I felt like I was in control, maybe I could try it. And it's been so great.
Oh.
So she has a good friendship and this lady is absolutely lovely. And it has completely enabled my mom to stay at home because she was willing to accept some assistance.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So one last question I want to make sure I ask you, because, connection, we've talked about how important connection is. And we've talked about all these health hacks and the optimization advice that we keep hearing, right? And certainly one of the big ones is alcohol and cutting out alcohol. But alcohol is so strongly tied to connection. It's, right, social, like the social grease. And so what are your thoughts on that?
I love that question. So a common question I get is desserts and alcohol. Where do we stand on this? We know sugar's not great. We know alcohol is not great. Where is it? And people will come down differently, but I'm just going to give you my take as a gerontologist of 30 years. My take is moderation. So it is, if you want to eliminate both of those entirely and that feels good to you, absolutely. Neither of those things are good for you. At the same time, for some of us, being able to have a drink, not big drunk, or to have a dessert adds to our life.
And joy.
And joy, right? And so like somebody the other day called and she goes, I just don't know what to do, and I was like, I think because we're not going to live forever, I think it is okay to lean in and celebrate joy. And so you can use me if you want to have a drink or you want to have cake, that I said it's okay. And, not everybody will agree, but that truly is my take for myself. It's what my 96-year-old mom does. And it's what I encourage my patients to do. So
love it. Perfect. Great response. Yes. And I 100%, that's been my philosophy, but it's great to hear it from a gerontologist of 30 years. Okay. One last question, which is, so change is hard and aging is so much change. So, what last thoughts do you have or recommendations, tips, can you share for us as we are all getting older and dealing with so much change?
I love that question. So I love to leave a practical can-do approach. So one of them is like trying to ask for help in some way. And then the other one is what you notice, what you consciously notice is what you end up seeing. So when we wake up and think, what hurts? What doctor's appointment do I have to go to? What's wrong with my kid and my grandkid? What's bugging me about my husband's loud sleep apnea? That's what we're noticing, right? We're noticing all the hard and not so good parts of aging. Mm-hmm. So I would ask the listeners today, tomorrow, when you wake up, can you, before you get out of bed, use your fingers to go through and put a finger down for each positive thing that you are grateful for, and that is good. Mm. And sometimes I do it every day, and I often, because I'm so tired, I go, my pillow, my bed, and then I'll go, my coffee, and then my 30-year marriage. The fact that I get to meet today with the beautiful podcast, Money Without Math. And by the time I get up to number 10, I am a bit reset. And the literature also supports this, that gratitude, when you buy a certain car and then you're driving and you see that car everywhere, this is the same kind of thing. Yeah. By starting our day with gratitude and what is right, not what is wrong, it puts us on a different path. And for everything that's wrong, there's probably about 10 things that are right. And so I would encourage everybody tomorrow to start with this simple finger thing and then keep doing it. And then sometimes people move it to a journal. And my mom, for example, she writes in it every morning. She does 3 things, but she's now at 650. And so then she flips back through those things when she needs a little lift. So there's our tangible go-to.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. Okay. So some of the notes that I jotted down were, of course, grow, connect, adapt, and give. Those are all tied to our Joyspan. Start earlier. Don't wait to start practicing these things. How we think is so critical, and it's so important to have a positive mindset and just embrace all of these changes.
Yes, and it's not too late. So if you have parents who are having a rough time, I find that the best way is not to say, like, you need this Joyspan book. It's usually best to say, gosh, I benefited from this book, and make it real, like go through and work on, start kind of putting your breathing thing on first, like work on your Joyspan. But then you might say to a older loved one or a spouse, I found some stuff in this book that really did kind of make older a bit better. I think you might like it. And the workbook is right in the book. And I've watched people who were really aging sucks and I hate this kind of release a little bit once they read through the science of it. And I've been watching lives improve at every age. And it's the most gratifying thing. And I just feel deeply grateful for it.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. And so if people want to follow more of your journey, Dr. Kerry, where can they find you?
Well, we talked about Instagram. So I put things on Instagram, and then I have a simple website, drkerryburnight.com. And that's a place where you can, the book is sold everywhere. And so if you want to support local bookstores, you could also ask at your library. And if they don't have it, what I'm finding is that they then order it. So that's a nice way. It's also on Audible if you're a person that likes to listen to it more. And, you could, and then of course, Amazon. Amazon's having a special where if you buy 3 for the price of 2. And I've been meaning to advertise that today. So a nice gift. And people have been wanting to buy multiple, and they didn't tell me. I just happened to see it yesterday. So you can get 3 of these beautiful hardcover books for under $50. I thought
nice. That was okay. Well, we will share some of those links in the show notes so that folks can take advantage, buy the book, follow along, meet your lovely mom, Betty, on Instagram. And of course, if you know someone who might benefit, share the podcast, open up the conversation with the podcast or send them a copy of the book.
Oh, well, I'm grateful for this podcast. Oh, my goodness. I absolutely love the important, needed, well-rounded message that you're giving.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks again for listening. Please follow us on Spotify if you're not already, so you don't miss any future episodes. We'd also love for you to rate the show while you're there. Connect with us on social. Search Karen Coyne CFP on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. If you have feedback or if we can be of service in any way, please let us know. And now for the standard disclosures. Opinions expressed are those of Karen Coyne and not those of Raymond James Financial Services or Raymond James. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Incorporated. Clarity Planning is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. Karen Coyne Financial Advisors, located at 12920 Connemara Drive, Suite 202, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21742. Phone 301-739-7002. Any opinions expressed by Dr. Kerry Burnight are not necessarily those of Raymond James. Raymond James is not affiliated with nor endorses Dr. Kerry Burnight. This podcast is for informational purposes only.